name is David Putano. I'm a clinical music therapist working in Toledo, Ohio. And this presentation is called Music Therapy and the Purposeful Use of Music from Pregnancy through Infancy. And also, I'm going to be talking about how to utilize music therapy and music listening concepts for the labor and delivery process. I'd like to start out by saying on the website there are two versions of this presentation. The first version, in great detail, is about 42 to 44 minutes long, and this version is about 15 minutes long. I wanted to do that to give you a choice. After you watch this, if you're even more interested in the information, you can view the longer version, again, that is in much more detail. I'd like to mention also that on the website musicfromthestart.com, the bottom left corner in the Resource Center, I'll have many PDF entries there that you can look at and even print off. Things like music therapy research, the outline of this presentation, and many things that I'll be touching on in the short version and, of course, in the long version of this presentation. And the purpose of this presentation is to give expecting families, and even those families with small children, information, instruction, and support about how to use music therapy concepts such as music listening and even using mother's voice to benefit during times of pregnancy, labor and delivery, infancy, and even toddlerhood. An important point I'd like to make is that this information we're presenting here is unique. If you go on websites or do searches for childbirth music, let's say, you're going to get suggestions for you to use pre-composed music. And in my music therapy experience, and from what the literature and research talks about, how we benefit the most is when we choose the music. And I refer to that as preferred music. And throughout this presentation, I'll be referring to that very often, and I really get into a lot of detail in the 40-minute version of this presentation, and I have a lot of references to that on the PDF pieces in the Resource Center. Very briefly, I'd like to just encourage you to look at the research information at the Resource Center again. It's titled Music Therapy or MT Research Sheet. Look at that or print that off, and you can see the many areas of research, and I even have those research areas explained. But particularly with regard to pregnancy, labor and delivery, and infancy and toddlerhood, look to numbers 1, number 3, number 4, number 9, and number 11. Those are areas with regard to pain management, stress management, and those kinds of areas that are pertinent, particularly to labor and delivery. And before we go on to the next section, the purposeful use of music and voice during pregnancy, I'd like to just make a point to say, again, that the keys to music benefiting us at any stage are that we choose the music. And again, I refer to that as preferred music, that we choose the music. And when we talk about music listening during labor and delivery, I'm going to instruct us how to put playlists or CDs together for the beginning, the middle, and the more intense stages of labor. Preferred music is the key, and very importantly, once we have this music, we need to listen to it enough so we can develop a conditioned response. And those are the two keys to having music benefit us. Referring to the outline, I'll now talk about the purposeful use of music and voice during pregnancy. And I don't necessarily mean we have to sing, but I'm going to talk about using mother's voice. And particularly, a very famous ears, nose, and throat doctor from Paris, France, named Alfred Tomatis, researched this area very extensively, and I talk about it at about the 20-minute mark of the longer presentation. So I encourage you to even just fast forward the long presentation to the 20-minute mark, where I talk about Alfred Tomatis and his work with regard to using mother's voice. One thing that Alfred Tomatis discovered is that in the womb, the developing baby hears 65% of what goes on outside the womb. So developing babies very much hear what's going on. So I encourage you moms to read storybooks for months and months while you're pregnant, of books that you're going to read later on when your child is born, books that you're going to read at bedtime as the child gets a little older, books you're going to read about learning colors or learning manners or Bible stories. Read those while you're pregnant, because your baby will have that experience, and then when you read those stories afterwards, your child will know them just innately because you read to them while you were pregnant. Similarly, we want to use music in the same manner. While you're pregnant, listen to music that you love. For instance, during bedtime, every night at your bedtime while you're pregnant, listen to music that you can envision you playing in the bedroom for your child when they go to sleep. If you listen to that same music while you're pregnant, once your child is born and you play that music for their bedtime, they will totally associate that music with sleep and comfort and relaxation, because that was their experience while you were pregnant with them. They'll totally grow up with those kinds of experiences. So you want to use music in that way while you're pregnant, for not just sleep, for other times of day also. And a couple quick suggestions for experiencing music during pregnancy. You might have heard of people doing this, but grab some headphones and open them up and place the headphones on your belly. Again, for sleep music or for other kinds of music that you're going to experience while you're pregnant. Another suggestion is Mozart. Listen to Mozart music. And in my 40-minute presentation, I talk about the importance and the rationale of that. Oliver Tomatis researched those kinds of areas also. Now we're on to the purposeful use of music, particularly music listening during labor and delivery. The goal and purpose of using music listening during labor and delivery is twofold. Number one, to use the music you're listening to as a rhythmic guide for your breathing at various stages of labor. And the second purpose is to use the music listening as a positive diversion from pain, from stress, I mentioned these earlier, from exertion, negative emotions, those kinds of things. And all that information, again, is talked about in the long presentation, but particularly in the research information in PDF form in the Resource Center also. And what you want to do, moms and dads, to come up with your own preferred music playlist for labor and delivery is come up with 3 playlists of different speeds, slow, medium, and fast, of your favorite music, so you have those CDs or playlists ready for those times during labor and delivery. And the 3 speeds for your separate CDs or playlists are slow, and if you remember from music class, a term that means slow is largo, and that's 42 to 66 beats per minute. The second speed is medium, or from music class, the term andante, 56 through 88 beats per minute. And then the fast tempo, or allegro, 84 through 144 beats per minute. Now, if you're not a musician or don't want to hassle with pulling out a stopwatch to actually measure the tempo of songs, on my Resource Center, I have a piece that gives suggestions of songs within those tempos, songs that you can choose. So you can either choose fast, medium, slow songs off your own music collection for your playlist, or you can go to my Resource Center piece, and over time I'll be adding more and more songs to that piece on the Resource Center, which is called Popular Music Playlist Guide. Also, I'd just like to mention too, the 40-minute presentation talks about a phone app that has those song suggestions, but I decided there's no need for me to do a phone app when I could just put that information on a PDF selection in the Resource Center. So that's what I've done. So as you're watching the 40-minute presentation, please disregard the mention of the phone app. I'd like to mention that in putting together your playlists, you do not have to have a lot of songs on each playlist, even if you're anticipating having a long labor. Because what we're using the music for, remember, is number one, for that rhythmic guide for breathing, And also, we're using it for a positive diversion from pain or stress or exertion, those kinds of things. So we're not using it to entertain ourselves. So let's say we even have 3 or 5 songs on our slow playlist. Put the repeat function on and just play them over and over again. Because the music is preferred music, you've chosen it, you like the music already, so it doesn't matter if it plays over and over again. So just know that you don't have to go out of your way to have a big playlist for each tempo. And very briefly, again, once we have our playlists, how you want to use them is, again, first as a rhythmic guide. So let's say we're at the beginning stages of labor and our breath rate is slow. And the clapping here indicates the tempo of the music. So you just want to breathe with it, similar to how you might dance with music, just as best you can, right in time with the music. So for the middle stage of labor, breathing might be getting faster, contractions are getting faster. Put the medium tempo music on and breathe with it. And the same for the later stages of labor, more intense. Quicker breathing, put on your faster music. And again, just do your best to stay with the tempo of the music, similar to how you would do your best to dance or to move with certain tempos of music. Now in the last section, I'm talking about the purposeful use of music and voice during infancy and toddlerhood. Well, now is the time to pull out that music or those stories that you've read. Mom, pull those out now that your child is born. Use those same songs for bedtime. Maybe you played songs when you were cleaning the house that you could now put on for them picking up the room, those kinds of things. Read the same stories you read for relaxing times, or to teach colors, or to read Bible stories. Pull those out, and you'll be amazed that your child will have that innate association with those times associated with that music and your voice. And lastly, I'd like to remind us of some important points. First, very importantly, preferred music is the key. Again, when we choose the music, that's how we benefit the most. Not so much when someone else tells you that you should listen to this music for that purpose. When we choose the music because of our associations. And also, I'd like to encourage you to go to the long version of the presentation, because there it really talks in detail about how and why music affects us the way it does, and mother's voice. Remember the work of Alfred Tomatis I spoke of. Go to the long version, and I think that'll help you be more invested in using music for the purposes that we're talking about today. And remember, the playlists and CDs we put together for labor and delivery do not have to be large. You can have 3 or 5 songs on them and just utilize the repeat function. I'd like to remind us to be thoughtful about how we use certain songs and mother's voice. Remember, moms, during pregnancy, at bedtime, use specific music that you use when the child is born. Read certain stories that you use when your child is born. Same thing with maybe picking up times when you're cleaning up the house, so then your child later on can listen to that same music to be energized, to pick up their room. Be thoughtful about using music and reading stories, mom, while you're pregnant. Do that for months and months, and then pull those out again after your child is born. You'll have a wonderful time, and you'll see the great connections your children have with those stories and that music. And I'd like to encourage us to look to the resource center, the bottom left of the website, musicfromthestart.com. And there you'll find things that I've mentioned, like the music therapy research sheet, the popular music playlist guide, the outline to the presentations. You'll even find information about pain management and stress management and different things that you could be interested in. So I hope you take advantage of that. In conclusion, I'd like to just say thank you for visiting musicfromthestart.com. And I hope this short version was good for you with regard to your time. And then again, if you're interested, please look at the long version. And contact me with any questions you have. And I'd love to hear some stories about how you've utilized the information that we've talked about today. So I hope to hear from you soon, and thank you.